So the first thing is we're going to fix our paper to a board. I'm using Winsor & Newton acrylic paper. It works well with acrylic and it doesn't buckle when it's wet. And I'm just masking taping that to a board. I'm going to be working A3 size, so I'm putting a strip of tape down the middle just to mark where the edge of the paper will be and burnishing it with a brush so that the paint doesn't leak underneath. Now I'm putting a cross grid on my reference and I'm going to transfer that onto the paper so that it makes it nice and easy to measure up the proportions. And for this, because I'm working small, I'm using proportional divider. Basically, that allows me just to mark where the major features are on the page. So the top of the head, bottom of the chin, side of the head, ears, roughly where the eyes are, where the mouth, the nose, hairline, all of those things. I can measure out roughly where they go, so that when I draw them in, I know that they're going to be in the right place. Now, when I start sketching out the portrait itself, I'm starting with big broad shapes. I'm not going into detail straight off the bat. Main reason is I don't want to draw a really detailed eye or a nose or something and then realise it's in the wrong place. So I'm using kind of gestural hand here just to kind of sweep in some big shapes, referring back to the reference, just measuring and just checking, just to make sure that everything's sitting in the right place so that once the broad shapes are there, I can start detailing them in after. Drawing in kind of the shape of the nose and the mouth. Just again, broad shapes, not getting too detailed at this point. I don't want to get bogged down in detail until I'm happy that everything's sitting in the right place. Just measuring and sketching in basic lines. And then once I'm happy everything's in, I can start detailing. So here I'm starting to think a little bit about contours as well and thinking about how to make the image more three-dimensional. Obviously I'm going to be working in paint, so a lot of that's going to be done in paint, but I can put in a few contour lines as I go, just to kind of give me that reference point. Putting the eyes in now, making sure that all the shapes are in place and I'm happy with how it's going. And then once I'm happy with all like those shapes and basic lines in, I change my hand to a more close grip and start working in a bit more finer detail. So you can see now that where I'm working on the eyes, I'm doing them in a bit more of a detailed way. And I'll just keep working around the portrait. Not so much measuring anymore because all the measurement work's done. I can now just focus on refining my lines and getting the picture to look how I want it to look. And just going backwards and forwards on various parts and just making sure I'm happy. Once I'm happy with my initial lines and that they're where I want them to be, I'll then take a black coloured pencil, and I'm using a Faber-Castell Polychromo for this, just to go over my lines. The reason for doing this is the graphite, when you work with acrylic, if you're putting I put a wet wash down first, it just washes away, whereas the Polychromo doesn't. It will show through, it will stay a lot stronger, so it's easier for me to keep my lines for my painting. Just going over everything until I've got my drawing finished, and here we go, it's now ready to paint.